أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك المظلومين، صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. روي عن مولانا ومقتدانا أبي القاسم محمد صلى الله عليه وآله: من أصبح ولا يهتم بأمور المسلمين فليس منهم. It is narrated from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever wakes up and does not care about the affairs of the Muslimin is not from them. So today we celebrate a day that one of our grand scholars, الامام الخميني رحمة الله تعالى عليه, had established or founded for us, which is called the International Quds Day. It's a day where we celebrate the symbol of unity and defiance against the tyranny of the occupation of Israel. Because this occupation, of course, is illegal. It goes against all morals and it goes against all facets of humanity. And today, inshallah, we'll speak about a bit of a historical recount or account of the history of Judaism or the history of the Jews themselves, and then how did the state of Israel come about, and of course end it with what's our duty today and what's our duty towards what's going on today. Inshallah, we'll do this before a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, if we are to look at the history of the Jews, they originated from 12 tribes, and those 12 tribes go back to the sons of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, because he had 12 sons and each son of his represented a tribe. And that's why today Banu Israel, they all go back to these 12 children of Prophet Yaqub, who another name for him is Israel. And we see that the prophets that came later on, majority of them were from the lineage of Nabi Yaqub, which meant that they were prophets that came from Banu Israel. Now that's just a history of how the Jews came about, or Banu Israel. We go back or forward in time to when an actual government was established in Jerusalem. That was a government of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam and the government of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. And these two prophets, they ruled in the city of Jerusalem, which is known today as Al-Quds. And then afterwards, after this period, the Jews became dispersed in the land. So they left Jerusalem and went to different corners of the earth. And in Jewish literature and Jewish theology, according to the Orthodox Jews, it meant that these Jews cannot come back together in the Holy Lands, which is Jerusalem, before the coming of the promised Messiah. Now, the promised Messiah, which we believe is Prophet Isa alayhi salam, actually came. But they didn't believe in him, despite the miracles that he had shown them. And during the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, we saw many miracles, like reviving the dead, curing the leper, and many more and more miracles. And despite that, they didn't believe in him. And they went further to indirectly cause for his supposed death. Because as we believe that Nabi Isa alayhi salam never died. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him to him, and the person that was crucified on that cross was not actually Nabi Isa alayhi salam. It was just an illusion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them think that this was Nabi Isa alayhi salam, but it wasn't. So, the Orthodox Jews, what do they believe? They believe that when the promised Messiah returns or comes to earth, then he will establish a government in the promised land, and the promised land is Jerusalem. So that's the opinion of the Orthodox Jews. That's why we see some Jews today who are against the state of Israel. They are standing up for the Palestinians. Why are they doing that? Because it actually goes against their aqeedah. Because they actually don't believe that they can go back to the promised lands, or they don't believe that they can go back and establish a government there. And this is why they're against this occupation. And as we see today, Zionism literally means the belief that Jewish people may or have to have or need to have a government in the promised land in Jerusalem or in Palestine. So that's why we see today Zionists, they paraded the idea of going back to Palestine and establishing that government as we see today. And we also see that they defied this law because, as we mentioned, the Orthodox Jews, they believe that they can't go back to the promised lands. But the Zionists, they came and then they changed this law to suit their own agenda. And that's why they believe they should have the state of Israel. I'm going to give a bit of a historical account of a few things that happened throughout the years so that we can develop an understanding of what happened and what led to the state of Israel actually coming about. So the first thing is the Balfour Declaration, which was issued by the British government in 1917, and it announced Britain's promise for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So the British government, they promised the Jewish people a land in Palestine, which was then under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, because Palestine at the time was under the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire in Turkey. That's the first thing. Second thing is, the promise that came from the British government appeased the Zionist movement. It pleased them. They liked it. And those Zionists who believe that they have a right to the land of Jerusalem. And then, following the end of World War I, the region of Palestine was conceded by the Ottoman Empire and was placed under the rule of the British via a mandate from the League of Nations. Okay? After so, in February 1947, the United Nations later adopted a resolution to split Palestine into two independent states, which is what is called today a two-state solution for the conflict that's going on at the moment. A Jewish state and an Arab state. So the Jews will have their own sect or section, and the Arabs will have their own section, with Jerusalem under UN trusteeship. Despite opposition from Palestinian Arabs of the region. So basically, when the UN did this, or implemented this, they didn't get the permission of the Palestinians. Instead, they just went ahead and decided that there's going to be two states in this country, and they take ownership or trusteeship of the city of Jerusalem, which was the capital. Later on, Jerusalem, a city with religious significance to many groups, would remain under international control administered by the United Nations, as we mentioned. So they took control of Jerusalem. And as we know, Jerusalem is the home of a famous mosque and one of the four mosques in Islam, Masjid al-Aqsa. And of course, Palestinians refused to recognize the resolution, and violent conflict between both groups continued to do this, and this continues today. So today we saw that the Palestinians decided to revolt against the tyranny that they were facing, and because of this revolution, right now they're being butchered. And the whole world is seeing the devastating images of the people in Gaza. Now, what is our duty to those people? Us seeing what's going on and not doing much. The narration I mentioned at the start of the lecture means we're not from the Muslimin. If we don't wake up and we don't actively try to do something or actually care about what's going on, the Holy Prophet is saying that you're not part of the Muslimin. You're actually not a Muslim. So what is our duty? I'll give 3 solutions. First thing is raising awareness. A lot of us go to school, a lot of us go to university, a lot of us work. When we're at school, we're at work, and a topic like this is mentioned, we have a duty to educate people about what actually happened, what is going on, because there's a lot of propaganda that happens on the news, in the media, that clouds people's judgment when it comes to political issues. So it's our duty to clear up these misconceptions that are raised. When you're at work, for example, and you're talking to one of your co-workers, and then, for example, this issue is raised up. And there, for example, are saying, oh, you know what? Maybe a two-state solution is what's needed. Maybe what's actually happening is right. You have a duty to educate these people and tell them what's actually happening. Because some of them are actually naive. They don't understand the magnitude of this issue. And second of all, we can raise awareness through social media. Maybe not all of us have a following, but those who do have a good following, who have non-Muslims, they have a duty to educate people on social media. Post about it. Show the devastating images that are happening at the moment. By you showing this to the world, it is exposing the crimes that are committed by this occupation. The second thing we can do is make dua. You know, we know the weapon of a mu'min is making dua. So you utilize this. Because once we do more dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept our dua. Allah says, ask me and I will answer. So inshallah we can, through our du'as, this issue and this conflict will be resolved inshallah. And of course, another thing, and I'll conclude, is we also have a duty to boycott certain products and clothing lines, for example, or certain companies that promote or fund this occupation. And we even have fatwa from our scholars, from our ulama, like for example, Sayyid al-Sistani, he actually says it's haram to consume these products if they support or fund this occupation. So not only are we meant to boycott, but it's actually haram to engage in these products or in these companies or with these companies that support this regime. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise and fix this issue and aghth the people of Palestine from this tyrannical regime with the dhuhur of the Hujjah Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. And inshaAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make us of those who stand with him and be slain in his way. بحق الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.